Hi everyone, it's Cindy. Welcome back to Studioloo. I hope you're all doing well. I'm here today with a flip through of my latest journal. I've had some really good focused time this week and I got this book done that I'm affectionately just calling Stem's Botany Adventure. And it's kind of like a slightly effeminate botany book, like a lady's botany book maybe. So this book got started using a vintage book that was this beautiful green, and it was titled Tabitha at Ivy Hall. I covered this book up pretty much completely, its cover, but just kept this beautiful green book as the back of the book. The cover did have like a navy blue illustration of like kind of a girl reading, but it wasn't really all that attractive, so I wanted to completely change this book. So some time ago I got these really amazing Italian botany plates that were made from like this plastic, and they are embossed, so all of this is raised up on the front of the book. You can see it the most here with the fig, but it goes through, you know, different stamen and raceme information. So this is wisteria, grape, hawthorn, Queen Anne's lace, daisy, and fig. So it's a nice kind of scientific image, and I have stitched it on. I've covered the spine with some iridescent green silk that has a little bit of eco-dyed fabric under here that kind of is like the header of the spine. And then I have here two strings of green embroidery floss with Swarovski crystals on them in gold and green with a little bit of blue, and they're all iridescent. And then I didn't put a closure on this book because I feel like it just doesn't need one. It's just a nice little book. It's not, you know, gaping open or anything. And then of course I left the back here. So this is like a fun book because there's lots of things going on here. We've got fabric and leaves and bits and bobs all sticking out here. So let's get into the book. So you'll see the same green silk here at the back, and it's a little bit like, it's silk waste, so it's a little bit like, it's soft, but it's, I'd say, uneven in its color, and that's kind of cool. It's like a little bit rustic. And then these are the end papers that I used, and this lovely vintage photo that maybe tells the story. I think this is kind of her botany adventure, this girl here, and we have a little pocket with a little stamp there, and then the tag on the inside is of this beautiful bird and the blue eggs in the nest below. So we open with kind of a Dutch door here with this image. I should also mention this book has a lot of elements from the Junk Journal Studio, whose design team I am on. I will link below the digitals that are included in this book. And I've also used some bits and bobs from some other digitals, including Medieval Mirage. This is a Medieval Mirage image. Yeah, so just letting you know that. So this is cabbage dyed paper. And then this says Dry Spring Song. A long cold spring, dry and ungenerous, perplexed us with its limited flowers, jaded. As soon as opened, cracked earth, the grass, gray for a little, scorched, arrested, faded. So just a bit of a nature note kind of verse there. And then this little pocket that has a Junk Journal Studio label here and some vintage tape there, sellotape, on this gorgeous botanical paper from a really beautiful vintage book. Then we have here, winds are versatile. Winds have many voices, gossiping with trees, or in winter calling, lonely wailing pleas. Winds are gay in springtime, humming in the rain. Winds are minstrels singing down a summer lane. And that is a verse by Laura Janet Larson. And then on the back, a little label there on the journal card. And here we have a belly band, and then this journal card. And this beautiful green paper that was dyed by Mary Ellen of Red Parrot. And this is some more of that vintage sellotape. A little tab here on this cabbage dyed paper, some of my rusty eco printing. This is a page from one of several folios you'll see throughout this book from the Junk Journal Studio. And another little Junk Journal Studio piece. More dyed paper. And then this is a tree in winter. And then this big illustration of a beautiful piece of art here. It's an apple tree that all these folks are underneath. Some green vintage tea towel fabric down the side. More dyed paper. And then another of the folios. So it flips out with the paper here. Now, the paper that I'm printing on these days, it's this nice, it's called, I think, Fireworks, and it's like a white cardstock paper with little tiny flecks, almost like, you know, twilling kind of like in the paper. So you can see tiny little color flecks there. I love this paper. And then this is another little medieval mirage image. And then this is all the folio from the Junk Journal Studio, so that folds in. And then we have this belly band that has this beautiful vintage image of a fern. And that just pops in here on this little piece of rusty eco printing of a leaf. And more cabbage dyed paper. And then we have a belly band here on that beautiful green paper. And this is a Rice and Whaley ledger that I did some watercolor swatching on. Little upper corner tuck with a cluster of images here, and then this round journal card of a rose on that beautiful botanical paper. Some more cabbage dyed paper and another little label from the Junk Journal Studio. This is a really fun vintage photo, and I added a little tab here from Junk Journal Studio, a banner, and the leaves fell, and they're out there kind of playing croquet in the woods. And then this is a calendar page. It's that nice plastic woven kind of paper in calendars. It's just some beautiful trees. And then this is a collage board tag with a playing card and a bird. And it says very, very beautiful buttercups and daisies. And we do have buttercups and daisies in this book. There's some buttercups here. So you will see them in this book. And then this is another of the folios from the Junk Journal Studio. Just beautiful. And that folds in, and we have another little stamp here from the Junk Journal Studio, or a little botanical image. But then over here, we also have this little pocket, and I've put, this is 4 little vintage labels, and they have little spots for holes, and you could also disconnect them there if you wanted to, but I thought it would be just a fun little journaling space. Some more dyed paper with a fabric tab, and here is one of the original pages from Tabitha at Ivy Hall. So that's the main title page there with a little bit of botanical. And then this was the only illustration in the book, and I absolutely love it because it's kind of a little sassy. So it shows this girl sitting on top of this drawer, and it says, "I'll go without supper before I will give up this drawer, and you may as well understand that first as last." So I don't know what was going on, but it was very funny. And then some sort of blue-green paper, and cabbage dyed with a little botanical. This is some guest book paper with some pretty blue roses and other flowers. Vintage tape and some pansies. More cabbage dyed paper with some needlework fabric down the side there. More of the flowers from the guest book. And more of the cabbage dyed and blue-green paper. Another original page from Tabitha at Ivy Hall. I just left one of those alone because I like to do that, to just, you know, provide some of the original pages. More dyed paper, and this little tuck spot down here on the back side of that fun calendar. And then this is a really beautiful tag from a book about Chinese brush painting, and the other side of that gorgeous calendar. And then we have a little paint swatch and a bunch of greens. Here we have Nature's Gift, In the Moment, Sage Gray, Rainy Afternoon, Coastal Storm, and Boreal on that beautiful botanical vintage book page. And this was from the cover of a vintage botanical rose book, and I just loved it. So it's a nice little like round, you know, half and half kind of journaling card. And then this is from a vintage field guide. It has sweet Joe Pyeweed, spotted Joe Pyeweed, and salt marsh fleabane. I just really liked the colors. More cabbage dyed and green spatter dyed paper, and you see a little bit of a ledger snip coming over the edge there that connects to this whole beautiful Junk Journal Studio folio, and another Junk Journal Studio image there. And then a little snippet up here on this bluey green paper. This says The Magic of Trees, and it's from a book of the same title. Little stitched on crochet edged linen label. Cabbage dyed paper. The other side of that, tree paper. And another vintage photo pocket that says From the Pond to the Trees. And there we have the lady here standing by this beautiful lily covered river. And then this is a little verse on this journal card by Christina Rossetti. Rushes in a watery place and reads in a hollow, a soaring skylark in the sky, a darting swallow, and where the pale blossom used to hang, ripe fruit to follow. Another green spatter dyed page, cabbage dyed paper, more of that beautiful field guide. We have cross-leaved milkwort, red clover, and purple gerardia, and then these little iridescent bits that have been stitched on the side as a tab. A little tuck spot on botanical paper, and then this is a fun gold spattered tag that I made with botanicals on it. This little tip out here with botanical paper back here and a hinge and some writing space. And then this is an acetate window, and this tag is inside, and this is from the paper Cameo. And it just slides on in here for some fun journaling space. And then another little verse. A duck sat stolidly under the fragrant bush that only released its perfume in a shower, occasionally bursting in an evening rush from the stable clouds gathering to lower. And then the original book plate of Tabitha at Ivy Hall, and I added this little butterfly here, and it does have back here the 1911 copyright, and the green dyed paper with some eco-printed doily on the side there, and then a little cluster pocket with some nice vintage florals. This is handmade paper from thepapertrail.ca, and we have a bit of stitchy fabric on the side. And then this is from a vintage gardening magazine. It's like a really fun, you know, shape, and it's a little journal card. There we go. More of my rusty carbonized leaves paper and cabbage dyed paper, and then this is a tuck spot here with writing space and this little botanical label and this journal card inside. It's from a Vintage Ideals magazine, and then this flips out from, you know, you could glue something there, you could write there, and then you turn the page and the other side is here, and that's another folio from the Junk Journal Studio. They're so versatile and great. Another dyed paper, cabbage dyed paper, another of the rusty leaf pages, and a verse on this side. Few daffodils, small shows, sparse leafing, yet I shall remember later this April, May as a conclusion of a long retrieving, holding and hoping this episode of dry. And then this is a fun little photograph of all these girls all sort of sitting together, and I made a little pocket with a leaf stitched on here on the hand dyed paper of this beautiful bird tag. And then over here the hand dyed paper, and then we have a rusty paper clip on more hand dyed paper, holding on to this, and this was a fun piece of ephemera that I made a while ago. So the back is like eco-printed watercolor paper, the front has been printed, stamped with 1901, and inside each of these is a little vintage photo or a little map. So there's one of the little maps, and then the other little map, and then the other little map, and a vintage photo up here with these folks. So it's got those 4 little fun compartments and writing space on the back, and the whole thing just rusty paper clip at the top there. And some more dyed paper, a little green pencil crayons and notebooks there on the original paper. And this is a coffee dyed index card that says Your Green Diary. And then we have a fabric flip here. You flip it up and there's more writing space there. This is all the original old paper from Tabitha at Ivy Hall. And more of that lovely botanical book. This is another Victorian Wildflowers book page with some vintage tea towel stitched on the side. Dyed paper. Another folio from the Junk Journal Studio with one of her little cutouts as well. Beautiful images. More of my rusty carbonized leaves. That's birch, I believe. And then this just tips over the top of this blue page with this fun fabric here. And it's some really beautiful marbled paper from thepapertrail.ca. And I added this image on the front, and then on both sides we have that stitchy kind of stitchy fabric for needlepoint, and that just drops over the top. Little banner here from Junk Journal Studio on this cabbage dyed paper. And then a rusty carbonized leaf page. This is from a garden diary. And then in here we have a sort of a double pocket, and this Victorian image here, the daisy wreath. Sweet daisy, oft I talk of thee, thou unassuming commonplace of nature, with that homely face, and yet with something of a grace which love makes for thee. From William Wordsworth. And you have this little girl here. Then on this side I've added this fun image from Edith Holden. We have oaks and berries, and I figured it would just be nice to write on both sides in the gaps. And then this is also Edith Holden with the snowdrops and a couple little leaves here, and just a little fun freeform journal card. More of the garden diary and rusty carbonized leaf paper. Cabbage dyed, and then a little pocket down here with lilacs on this blue paper. And then this is from a Vintage Gardening Ideals magazine. The flowers are nature's jewels, with whose wealth she decks her summer beauty. And Crowley has been quoted as the writer of that quote. And we have a little snippet here with some buttercups and more rusty carbonized leaves. Another of the folios from Junk Journal Studio. Pops out there and has that little 1894 garden farm and flower label. And then more hand-dyed paper from Mary Ellen of Red Parrot. And then this is a little laminated pocket with a real leaf inside and some vintage papers on that Victorian flower book. And then we have this verse, and this is from an Ideals magazine. It says, "Give me a woods. Give me a woods to walk in, and you can have all the tangible riches of a millionaire. A whole hillside of oaks, hickory, cedar, pine, and dogwood will suit me fine. A woods where I can walk for half a day and never come to the edge. I walk to place my feet on some old, grown-over trail and follow it until it ends mysteriously, and then make a trail of my own. I want to feel the springiness of moss and leaves beneath my feet, and hear the crunch of acorns or the snap of dry twigs. I want some outcropping boulders covered with lichens where I can stop and marvel at their minute etchings and small green shells. In spring I want to find a patch of bloodroot, some dogtooth violets, Dutchman's breeches, wild sweet William, and Jack in the pulpit. I want to savor the peace of a place where getting and spending are alien things. There must be some squirrels and birds to acknowledge my friendly salute and take note of my passing. I wish to sit on some old dead stump and note the new sprouts coming in around, testifying to nature's repairs and dying and rising up again. In summer, I want the branches overhead to be so entwined they form a green canopy, making it cool underneath, yet with a blue window here and there, where one may peek through to see the home of the galaxies and ponder the endlessness of space." Very beautiful, right? Last page is those Victorian wildflowers, and then I have here, this is an actual vintage pocket from a library book. Added my signature there. And then we have another verse here at the back, but also another little card in there. "Waited as we did, dryly the cuckoo once spoke in the dawn. The gardeners, watering, regard their flagging shoots with petulance. Through this long calm disturbance of the season's ordering, an undistinguished spring, no sudden lightning, ferocious breaks of fire in blossom overnight. No thunder catches the dust-swamped breath shifting, mobs of white cloud chase not overbright. And I kind of purposely tore this down the middle and then like reassembled it back because I thought that would be kind of pretty for the back of this book. And then this is a little journal card here that pops into that vintage library pocket. And then a fun little trifold tag that I made from an Edith Holden country diary book. And I just thought it would be fun to kind of include in here as well as a little special little salute out of the book. More of that rustic fun silk there on both sides. And that is the end of STEM's Botany Adventure. So if you're seeing this this video, then you will be seeing this book pop up in my Etsy shop, which is linked down below in the description box. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're having a great day. Bye for now.